Good morning, fish keepers. Cam here from the fishroom.co.nz. We've done it. We've done Friday. We've made it here. Let's get it on. Coffee is very good. Before we go any further, I'm just going to adjust my camera because it's annoying me. There we go. Right. So today, without too much more mucking around, we've got a special guest waiting. To say that I'm fizzing is an understatement. So we're going to bring on John, who is not our special guest, but we have Braxton. Hey, Braxton, how you doing, mate?
Good morning. Yeah, good. Good, thanks.
Very good. Very good. Thank you very much for joining us. It's much appreciated. Like I said, I'm really excited to be having you on today and having a wee chat with you. So I'm, dare say, fizzing about this. So this should be fantastic.
It's very kind of you.
Cool. So first, let's start with how you got into fish keeping and how that started for you.
Well, there used to be this pet shop near the gardens in Dunedin, and I used to go in there all the time. And I always wanted fish, and I ended up getting this tiny little tank and just put everything you could imagine in it. But I was 12, and everything just continuously died.
Funny that.
And I have a feeling that, I mean, this is sort of pre-internet, so I didn't really know. I just thought that's what they did. But
did you get to the bottom of it?
Pardon, sorry? Did
you get to the bottom of why they were dying off?
No, I was 12. I just thought it was because fish died real quick.
Just normal.
Yeah. But as an adult, because I think that when you're 12 and you have no money and you tell your parents you need certain things, they don't believe you anyway. So when I became an adult and I had all this free time and, I mean, some expendable income, like not heaps, I was like, oh yeah, fish keeping. So I went and sorted it out, Googled it, realized that people had been on the internet forever talking about it and that I could do it again with an adult brain, adult income, and it just went from there. Oh, and actually, now I think about it, for some reason I had an axolotl when I was like this was only like 6 years ago or so, and I went and bought a bigger tank for it. And when I went to pick up the tank off Trade Me, I hadn't scrolled down on the page, and the tank had fish in it. Mm-hmm. So I turned up to pick up this tank, and the guy's like, well, how are you going to drain the water? I was like, what water? He's like, oh, it's just in the living room. So I'm standing there with my little brother, who I asked to come help me carry it, and this thing's just sitting there fully still running. And I'm like, oh. So I just pretended that it was what I knew. Like I was like, oh, yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep, I've got a bucket in the car.
I'm not here. I'm prepared.
Obviously I know that there were fish in it. I'm not an idiot. So then I ended up with one molly, one Corydoras, and then started Googling, realizing needing more and more of things, and then I got another tank, and then next thing you know, it's just obsession.
Was there a gap in time in your sort of teenage years where you didn't have your aquarium, from being like a kid to an adult, or have you always had something hanging around?
Well, I've had a turtle since I was 12. Or maybe even less, turtle? Like younger. Pardon?
Is that the same turtle?
Yeah, he still lives up at my dad's house. Nice. So I've always had something, but the interest wasn't always there. You know, like when you're a teenager, you're not realistically thinking, what's the best conditions for a turtle? I mean, it's different nowadays, but when you got pets as a kid, when I was a kid, it kind of just became a parental issue. You know, like I've lost interest, which sucks, and I'll admit that, but, you know.
Yeah, and that's how that often happens with children. They lose interest in something pretty quickly, go on to the next thing, and then the parents are the ones looking after said animal. Yeah.
I mean, if you're entering the hobby without a parent introducing it to you, and a child, they do lose interest. Compare that to maybe a mum or a dad introducing the child to the hobby. I guess it's completely different situation because they've got the knowledge for a start, but they'll encourage it and they'll continue it and give them a completely different experience. So for
Well,
a
you
lot
can
of
also,
kids, or
and like as
for a
a
lot
as a
of kids,
parent. Oh, sorry, you go.
mhm. So for a lot of kids that just jump in themselves, it must be hard to keep going when things go wrong.
Oh, well, my parents had no idea.
Mhm.
You know, like I'm not saying that they're terrible people, but when you're 11 and you're like, I need a light. Well, I mean, I don't even think my tank had a light. Or like, not that a light is essential, but it does make the experience better. And you're
Yeah.
like, I need
Yeah.
food for the fish. Like, we only just bought food for the fish 2 weeks ago. You never care for them anyway. Yeah. And you're just like, okay.
Yeah, one of the conversations I often have with younger people that are or new people getting into aquariums that start talking about lights. Yeah, yep, you absolutely don't need lights if you don't have plants, but it's going to increase your enjoyment of your aquarium if you do have a light. Like even just looking behind you right now, one has currently got a light, one doesn't, and you can see it is way more enjoyable with a light than without. You can get away with not having one, it's just not quite as enjoyable.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you don't get them to have them in a dark corner anyway, you know? Like,
Mhm.
Yeah.
but I think at one point in that tank, I had like an angelfish, like a electric yellow cichlid, like just stuff that I'd seen. Because I think the reason I ended up at pet shops was because I'd wait for my mum after school, or I'd like walk into town after school, and I'd just wander around, and I'd always been drawn to a pet shop. And then I got the turtle, and then I don't know, it just spiraled. There's a huge gap. Huge gap.
Turtle before the fish?
I think around the same time.
Yeah.
But I've always been obsessed with creatures, like little creatures and animals and nature.
Because aquarium keeping isn't your only pet thing. Like you've got your newts and stuff like that as well, don't you?
I've got frogs. I've got a leopard gecko.
Yeah.
But they get to live in the house. This is where all the stuff no one wants to look at goes.
Yeah. I'm surprised nobody wants to look at them.
Well, I still bring people in when they come to the house. And they're like, oh,
yeah,
you're way weirder than we thought. I knew you had a fish tank. I didn't know you had heaps.
Yeah.
And this room's all warm and like weird,
musty. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah. Lovely to sit in if you are interested in that sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Like if you came in here and you'd never met me or even had any idea, which a lot of people don't, because I'm not one of those guys who brings it up at parties. You'd come around to my house to do something, and I'd be like, "Oh, can you come help me do something?" And they'd come in here and they'd be like, "Oh,
yeah,
I don't know if I should really be here alone anymore."
I think maybe you're bringing the wrong people in.
Everyone's welcome.
Have you done it? Have you feel just you have done? Oh, I'm very impressed. I'm happy with that. We were talking yesterday.
I made sure not to put too much in though, because I don't want to feel gross all day.
Yeah, we were talking yesterday about making sure we got coffee, and Braxton was saying he'll just bring the jug along with him and just keep refilling himself up, unlimited supply. So I'm impressed with that. Well,
it'd be rude if I left. As one moment.
Yeah. Got to go get coffee. All right, cool. You've derailed us with your coffee.
Sorry, mate.
Can you share with us how you first got involved in like aquatic plant growing and the aquascaping side of everything?
Well, similar to the fact, like when I had that brainwave, like the bolt of lightning that made me go, I can keep fish again, but do it properly. I was at another pet shop and the guy there was like, you should try plants. And I said, what do you mean plants? And he goes, well, you can have an entire like range of plants that live in water. Because I just thought it was oxygen weed, right? Wrong.
Yeah.
And then, I remember the time he told me, I was like, oh, I want that one. And he's like, this was a very, very helpful guy when I got right into it. He's like, I would sell you that, but it'll do terrible without CO2. And I was like, what do you mean? What does CO2 mean? You know, like I know what CO2 is, but I didn't know how it applied to planted aquariums. And he's like, oh, don't worry about it. It's really complicated. It's not worth your time. And I said, hang on a second, I'll show you. And that's kind of it. Like he showed me plants, challenged me unintentionally. And yeah, so I just got everything in front of me on that day, and they all died.
But he was right.
Pardon?
He
So
was
he
right.
was right.
Oh, absolutely. Yep, 100% correct. I'd say the same thing to someone else now.
Yeah.
Mhm.
How long ago was that?
That was probably only really 5 years ago.
Right. Yeah. So relatively recently in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, but if you combine time plus hyperfocus divided by obsession, I mean those 5 years have been a lot of. I do a lot of it.
Yeah.
Not so much rescaping, but like just aquatic plants is always somewhere in my brain.
I like your maths here. Time plus hyper obsession divided by, I can't remember what you said. That makes a lot of sense. And I'm sure that is a common trait for a lot of people, that wee equation that you busted out then.
But the other thing too was like I had that, multiple tank syndrome with just keeping fish, and you get to a point where like this is for myself and I can only really speak for myself, but you get to a point where you're like, I am no longer feeling challenged. Like it's just work, like keeping 10 just fish tanks alive, right? Gets to a point where it's just, if you're not breeding or if you're not doing anything particular, you're just kind of like, there's 10 of them, water in, water out, feed fish, water in, water out, feed fish.
Yeah, robotic.
And then I just was like, this is, I don't think at the time I was thinking this, but looking back, I can see why I needed to diversify.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what was your first successful planted aquarium journey adventure tank?
Like successful, like I was happy with?
Yeah.
I'd say the first time you got to do what you set out to do.
Yeah, what you'd consider successful.
I had a Blue Planet 150 that I really focused on the hardscape, and I was really happy with that one. Like that was my first tank that I thought I could probably. It's more like I really like this. I could do this in my own head. Like I'm not putting that out to the universe to say someone come back to me and say, no, you can't. It's terrible. It's more like for me, I was like, yep, that looks really good. But from there to now, worlds apart.
Yeah. Still evolving, still learning, still going through.
Well, absolutely. But I mean, once you get to a point, it just becomes more about composition anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you, like my plant focus, well, it might upset some, or not upset, but like there's always an argument which is more important. What feels like there is. And I'm always on the plant side. Like, you can cover up so much with good plants.
You're talking about like hardscape covering up or composition sort of stuff as opposed to other things?
You've got really, really healthy, good plants. No one's going to say, unless that rock is in a terrible position, like right up against the front glass or something, they're going to be like, whoa, that Anubias looks so healthy.
Yeah.
Or, you know, like that's how I feel that I look at things.
Mm-hmm.
Overall layout is important, but to me, if you've got a great hardscape with crap plants, don't talk to me.
What's your favorite plant species to work with, or plant family?
I really, really like stem plants.
Right.
Because for me, I think stem plants are a challenge that people aren't willing to partake in.
Mm-hmm.
Because a great stem plant looks incredible. An unhealthy stem plant is the complete opposite. But people will still say stem plants just grow on their own. They're so easy to grow. It's like, you're growing and thriving, vastly different things.
Yeah. Survive or thrive.
Yeah. So, but I also really love crypts.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is like the complete opposite. You could just leave those things forever.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, do you like plants that kind of group together to create density? That's what appeals to you about them?
Absolutely, yep. And I like the stems that you can just cut, stick back in, and you can make like just a bunch, and they just look so they make me so happy. I don't know why.
So, all stem plants you can cut and
here. Where is it? Like this one here, this little lump of green makes me so happy. I don't know what it is. There's just like a lump of stem plants. And to me, that's the best thing.
What are those stem plants behind you?
What are they?
Yeah, can't really see from the video.
The Lobelia cardinalis.
Oh, yep, cool. Second question is, can all stem plants be cut and just replanted, or is there some that can't be?
I'm going to say all of them.
Yeah, I thought so.
Just like any growth point that grows a leaf, most, like even in terrestrial plants, tends to be somewhere where the plant is willing to then regrow roots if the conditions change.
Growth point under the leaf or above the leaf?
The growth point is where the leaf comes out. So that's where the meristem, the tissue is in there that can change to like growing roots. Like explaining it like very scientifically is very boring and very complicated. But
correct me if I'm wrong. You're a botanist by trade?
I'm an arborist by trade.
Right.
So I deal.
Yeah. So you cut trees all day. Sorry, for some reason I had in my mind that you're a botanist by trade, and I studied that. That's why. Yep.
But I work as an arborist, and ideally as an arborist, we'd trim trees, but we live in a country where people hate trees, so we just spend most of the time cutting them down.
Right. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. So some countries, they have arborists that tend to spend more time trimming things. Like in Europe, it's massive to have arborists that all they do is trim ancient trees really well, really beautifully. Whereas here, a tree blocks a view, no options, cut it down. And you could stand in someone's yard and give them 10 options and they'll still just cut it down.
So in their mind, get rid of it.
They're like, well, it blocks the sun out. And you're like, oh, but it's like 100 years old. They're like, no. Heaps of firewood. It's awful. It makes you really reconsider your job.
How do you approach approach setting up new aquascapes or new aquariums that you're designing?
With a lot of stress and obsession. Like, honestly, I get so excited about the idea, and I'm like thinking about it all the time, and I'm amassing bits and pieces, getting all the hardware ready, and then you go to hardscape it. So that's probably where I'd start. I say tank, clean. If it's in use, get rid of everything, which is an awful job because it's like dirty. You throw away a lot, which makes people feel weird. It makes me feel bad, but then again, I don't know why. So clean the tank, start with the tank, and then I would probably start thinking about rocks. If I've got the rocks, then I just start putting them in together.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like a very jump around from the process though. Like if I'll put a rock in and I'll like it, then I'll leave it there and I'll come back the next day and I might hate it.
Yeah.
But I could also, some of my tanks I've put stuff in, didn't like it, but just was sick of the stress, sick of the constant thinking about it. So I just fill it, plant it, and then sort of work backwards.
Mm-hmm.
So you might take rocks out, you might put rocks in, but that's also harder because it's full of water.
Yeah, it's a really interesting approach. It's an interesting approach. So you'd set it all up and then deconstruct it to get it where you want, as opposed to set it all up and then be happy and move through that way.
Well, I'm a reactive aquascaper, not a proactive aquascaper. So I'm quite happy for a tank to just look horrendous, like algae, whatever, and then I tune it back to running well.
Mm-hmm.
Which is where the patience comes in, which I think this gives me, I don't know, like just something about it, like knowing that eventually it's just going to almost overnight. Obviously, it's not overnight, but you're going to look at it again and you're going to go, oh, I should have known. I should have trusted that was going to work.
Trust your process.
Like before you panic and go, oh no, there's algae, you just stop moving. Just stop doing anything. Don't add anything to it. Don't take anything out. Just relax. That's what I'd say anyway.
So, algae is obviously a very broad subject, and there is
it's an annoying subject.
Yeah, at least one sort of algae.
Yeah.
How do you combat that as a general thing? Are you just let it ride its course, water change it out, work out exactly what it is, allow some time, and then try and tinker with whatever it is that might be feeding it?
Well, the way I do things, if it's one of the algae that is not if it's not cladophora or spirogyra or gyra, I'm not sure how people want to say it. Anything but those last two that I mentioned, you can basically just relax, just wait. And like people might say, it didn't work for me. It's like, well, maybe you didn't wait long enough. But those last two will ruin an entire tank. And I've had it happen quite recently. And there's something quite therapeutic about pulling everything out and throwing it in the bin because it's no good to anyone. And then, but yeah, I just wait, or like you just turn your lights down and then wait.
Yeah.
And there's certain ways to tell, like if you have algae on your hardscape or on your glass, like that's it. It's always, they'll always attract algae. But if you've got algae on your plants, grow your plants better. Like get your plants healthy. Like Tom Barr says, grow your plants, not the algae, right? Pretty sure he said that on your thing. So healthy plants, no algae. But if it's on your hardscape, just if it really bothers you, scrub it off.
Yeah.
But if it doesn't bother you, I think clean rocks in something that's meant to look like nature, like a perfectly cleaned rock, doesn't exist in nature. Like at all.
Every surface in nature has got something grown on it, whether it's a
Well,
substrate
yeah.
with leaf litter or rocks with a filament algae. It just happens. So why abolish it to some clinical
Well,
appearance? It just
That's
I mean,
why
it just doesn't look right.
botanical. That's why botanical aquariums appeal to me so much. Is like you can
Mhm.
leave things in there, let them develop, let things grow on stuff, because that's just part of nature, and that's where the super highly manicured stuff doesn't quite as much appeal to me,
no.
because it's not quite in that realm.
And it's also a
Yeah.
great excuse. It's a great excuse if your tank's real yuck.
Yeah, it is.
That was the.
That's how I wanted it.
Why does it look awful? Well, that's what I wanted.
You've got me. I'm guilty. I'm sorry. Guilty.
Oh, but I've got tanks that I don't. I mean, I barely show any of them to anyone. But I've got tanks that are just horrendous to the naked eye.
Yeah.
But like they have fish in them and are happy.
Yeah.
Like I don't really care. Like if I'm doing something that I want to show to people, it's important that it looks good to me and to others. But 99% of the things I do isn't for other people. So
Yeah. Well, I've got an aquarium at home, and I've not done a water change in probably about 9 months. It's not got a lot of fish in it. It's just got little endlers and some freshwater shrimp and snails and that sort of thing. But it's thriving.
yeah.
Absolutely thriving. Because there's a good amount of plants that are all growing. I've got a really good light, which I don't really ever put on. It just goes on if I need to do something in the room. And I just leave it. I top it up with dechlorinated water, and that's more or less the only thing I do. I don't even need to clean the glass because it's not getting the light. The fish themselves are thriving.
Well, yeah. I've got one where I grow my immersed plants, like my Anubiuses and stuff. And it just has white cloud mountain minnows and one killifish in it.
Yeah.
And the minnows breed, but there's obviously the killifish, I think, is controlling the population because there are more minnows, but not huge amounts.
Yeah.
And that tank never, like, it's got quite a deep. It's just like where I put all my old aqua soil, and then I was just like, you know what? I'll just fill it up, see what happens, and it just sort of runs as its own little system that I barely even look at. Every now and then, if like, because it's got like a filter with a hose running to water the plants out of so it's basically a paludarium, I guess.
Yeah.
Without really trying to do one. But if the water gets low enough that the filter stops pumping water into the top part, I add more water to it.
What you said just before is classic fish keeper. I'll just fill it up.
Well, yeah.
I'm sure there's been, I don't know how many, countless amount of aquariums or tubs or anything you want to talk about that have, well, I'll just fill it up, has been the start of it.
But I have an obsession with standing water. Like, I don't know what it is. Like, if I'm at a job, and it's always been like this, if I'm working and there's like even like a ditch that's full of water, I always wander off. Like, you can ask anyone I work with, they're like, oh, here we go.
Yeah, the water just pulls you, doesn't it?
I'm just like, what's in there? And most of the time, there's nothing. But they're all pretty excited if I find a frog or something. So there.
Yeah. You find frogs quite regularly?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Quite regularly. It's like, it's kind of my thing. Just go find one. You give me, okay, ready? Give me 1 hour. I'll go right now and I'll come back with a frog.
Do you guys get any interesting frogs over there? What kind of frogs have you guys got? Just generic?
No, we have none of the frogs you have. We have none of the frogs. We have 5 native frogs. I'm happy to be corrected, but this is the last I remember. 5 native frogs, all critically endangered. No tadpoles. They don't croak. They have no tadpole form. They live under logs. And then we have 2 Australian frogs that are naturalized. So they're considered not native, but not a problem because they don't affect our frogs because they have
Yeah.
tadpole stages. So they don't live anywhere near each other, so it doesn't really matter. But you can only keep the Australian.
And they're the bell frogs, yeah?
And then the tree frogs, which are the little brown ones.
The whistling tree frogs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We definitely don't have any tree frogs. We've just got a frog and a toad.
Yeah.
The common frog, common toad, and that's it.
Yeah, I like that. It's very English. Well, very Scottish, sorry.
Yeah. The basic. I mean, our aquatic life is quite bland, really.
But so is ours, but because it's endangered, everyone's like, whoa, this is exciting.
Yeah.
I'm excited by it, but that's why people care so much, because everything's got endangered. So everyone's like, we got to care about this. But they also don't, which is another complete topic.
As a general, I think the animals in New Zealand overall have really lucked out on lots of things. Like our native bird doesn't fly, like our, what we put on the pedestal doesn't fly for a bird, and like a lot of our other animals are lacking a lot of color, and we don't have a lot of venom, and we don't have anything spiky and pointy. Like our stuff has lost a lot of cool points, so to speak, but because there's not many of them, and the areas they live in are becoming less and less, they're becoming less and less.
Well, yeah, everything breeds really slow.
Yeah.
Breeds in a really weird way. Like all of our lizards, except for maybe one that's Australian anyway, like native lizards give birth to live young. So they have eggs, but they keep them inside until they hatch, and then they give birth to the live young. So I think it's beneficial for that, so that if the weather's not so good, they just stay inside for longer, and they just incubate as they go.
I did not know that. That's awesome.
I've got heaps of dumb facts.
Heaps of stuff. You derailed us again with your
Sorry, go.
Stuff. It's okay. Whatever you want to talk about, you want to go on some sort of tangent in some other direction, that's absolutely fine. No issues with
bring me back, and I'll stay back for at least 5 minutes.
Okay. Can you walk us through your maintenance routine when your weekly stuff you do with your aquariums and that sort of stuff?
Okay. So on the tanks like this, I mean, you can see the image, you just can't see it very clearly. This tank gets a water change all of the time just because it's really easy. So this tank might get a water change every 3 days because it's as simple as taking out 20 litres and putting 20 litres back in. The long tank behind me has had none for a while just because I've lost interest a little bit. But there's also only 6 glow light. Is it glow light Ransbora? Danios? Glow light? No, I don't know. So it's not really that important at the moment. The cichlids over here get 2 a week, just because I don't know, maybe once a week of like 20%. The cichlid fry will get more just because I'm a little bit nervous about them because of what happened last time. But if I'm trimming, I'll trim everything in the room. So if I'm trimming something to look better, I will pick up the scissors, and if I'm getting my arm wet, I tend to trim everything that could look like it needs trimming. I very rarely clean pipes, which is like a big no-no, and I'm often shamed for it, but I don't really care. Filter gets changed when I remember. So like my whole system goes against what people think of aquascaping.
Yeah.
So I think people think that because they look like this, which is not a brag, this is not saying this is the best tank ever, but you can do this without having to be too anal about it. But you do have to know you do have to have the knowledge to get to a point of perhaps being more particular to know where you can let it slide.
Is there like tells in the plants that you can recognize and go, I need to do something, need to do some trimming, need to adjust something, or do you just do it as they've gotten a bit long, gotten a bit scraggy, it's time to trim and tidy up again?
It depends on what I'm doing. Like if I'm going for a look of something, I'll just do it when it's long enough to cut it in half. Or, if the end looks really nice and the middle looks bad, you just cut the middle out and make that the new top somewhere else. So if you start with a good top, you end up with a good whole thing, I find.
Yeah.
But if something looks unwell, trimming it is probably not its best bet to be focused on just yet anyway. Like if it's looking for light and it's like real leggy and it's got like 4 leaves on it, absolutely cut it off. But I personally, if things aren't looking good plant health wise, I won't cut anything until I have new growth that looks good. Because that's the easiest way to tell that your plant is back on track is by the new growth. So you can have a real crap stem, like say, I don't know, anything. And if it's all looks a bit, yucky, if you focus on getting the light right, CO2 right, the fertilizers right, the next first leaf that comes out, you'll be able to say back on track, and you can just cut it off and whack it in the ground.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You mentioned when plants get leggy, they've only got sort of 4 leaves sort of scenario. How far gone is too far gone? Do you ever go, cover? Yeah. Or are you confident that you can pull them all back from quite a point?
It's a bit of a risk and reward situation. Like if it's something that I can easily replace from another tank or from you or buying from someone on Trade Me, if it's just not having a great time, like I had some Rotella rotundifolia that I'd had for years and it just wouldn't go back. And it just got yucker and yucker. So I just pulled it out, threw it out and got a whole new batch in.
Yeah.
So like if I can replace it easily enough, I'll just replace it. Like sometimes it's not worth trying to pull it back from the brink, but if it's something you care about and you like, it can be quite a fun challenge to bring it back.
Yeah. Cool.
But if you don't want to, just buy a new one. It's like anything in life.
Disposable.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ryan's been nagging me to talk about Tropheus with you. He's sent me at least 5 private messages on Facebook chat that I've tried to ignore, and he's brought it up in our chat. So let's talk about.
What does Ryan want to know?
Well, that's a good question because whatever you can tell him, he probably already knows, or he's probably told you everything that you know to an extent. So
no, I would like to talk about Tropheus because there is a reason why I decided to buy Tropheus.
Cool. So why did you decide to buy Tropheus, which seems a way distant world away from aquascaping and aquatic plants?
Funny you should ask. Because I hated cichlids. And I hated the people, and I didn't hate the people who kept it, but they represented something I didn't like in fish keeping. And if you can't understand something, you may as well at least try it. And now, I'll admit, love them.
Cool.
I had this idea that cichlids were just kept by tough. Like it was a bit lame to keep tetras because they're weak boy fish or something. And plants are dumb. So I was like, okay, well, if you can't beat them, join them. And I've actually really enjoyed it.
There is something that you have said to me more than once, a term that I really enjoy.
Mm.
Do you remember? Do you know what I'm talking about? Do you know where I'm going with this?
Is it the cichlid dad?
Oh, on point. It is. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
we've all met a cichlid dad.
Yeah.
Like you're at the at a pet shop and there's a guy comes in cargo shorts and he's quite tough and he's talking about all the cichlids he has at home and you're like, we get it. You're tough. Your fish are tough. Give it a rest, eh?
Yeah. Do we lump Ryan into the cichlid dad category?
No, because I've talked to Ryan a lot and he's actually a pleasant man.
Okay.
You know, like I actually really enjoy him, and he's been very helpful, which is probably unheard of for you, but he has been very helpful.
Cool. All right. So enough talking up Ryan, because I'm a little bit sickened by that, to be totally fair.
Okay.
He's also asked, what's the death count? So what happened? So you got some trophies.
I got some trophies off a breeder in Helensville.
We're narrowing it down.
And from Helensville to Dunedin is like 8 days travel. No, they got here, and I think my tank was immature, and they just dropped. So many died. Like I ended up with 10 out of 25 or something. And it was quite a crush, quite a blow to my fish keeping ego, because you get to a point where you think you can kind of do anything. And I couldn't.
Yeah.
And I couldn't figure out why they were dying, and I was mad. And they're not cheap either.
No, absolutely not.
But I committed and bought 25 more.
Did you work out what was causing the issues, or were you just going, it was an immature aquarium?
Because then Ryan had more. Well, no, he had the same thing happen to some of his fry when they came through. They just wouldn't get past a certain point. So we've narrowed it down to perhaps we've fed too much too early. Like trophies in their guts suck. Like it's the worst fish on the planet. You can feed them, look at them funny, and they just die, right? And I've only had them for 8 months. I already know that.
It's very common. They're known as bloaters for a reason.
Yeah, so now I just feed them when I'm beginning to feel guilty. Like I haven't fed them in a while. Maybe I better, you know?
Yeah.
I don't feed them for fun, that's for
sure. What do you feed them?
I feed them New Life Spectrum Algae Max.
Yeah.
Does that sound right? Is that a thing?
That is a thing. You've done well there. Look at that. You're almost turning into a cichlid dad.
I just did what Ryan said to do.
Fair enough.
But now, like, I'm in that, like, you know, when you get challenged and you're like, I will not back down. Like, not so much violent interactions, but like when it comes to a fish and it's like, I'm just going to die on you. You're like, I'll show you. have all the money I have spared just to one day stand in front of the tank and say, look, a Tropheus colony.
Yeah.
And then I'll go, now.
They're Tropheus dubs, aren't they? Dubisois. Yeah. What's your plan for that? Because obviously you're growing them out. Are you growing out 2 different tanks full now? Because you've had 2 lots come down?
Yeah. I've got 2 lots growing out. I've got the ones from the first batch, and then ones from the second batch, which are tiny. And then I've got a 650 litre tank downstairs that my plan is to change into some kind of biotope sort of environment, and then put them all in there and hope for the best.
So you a nice big 650 litre tank is the end goal for them. Yeah.
But the way I see it, I'm going to have to change it from planted now, and it's going to take a lot of work to get it to where I need it to be, and then I'll put them all in. And do you know what I think is going to happen?
They're going to bloat and die, and you have to start again.
You got it. That's exactly what I'm thinking.
Oh, isn't that a horrible thought, though?
But you need to be prepared for everything, right?
Yeah. Are you going to go down the plants with the Tropheus route, or are you going to go rock only sort of scenario?
I did think about it, but then it's I'm not like a big biotope guy, but I also know there aren't many plants in the lake they come from.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And like I feel like, I mean, they're really cool, and it might be good to have some Anubias in there or whatever, but a lot of the plants I grow do enjoy really soft water. So I'm not willing to compromise plant quality for having them in a tank. So if the tank will be better with just rocks instead of rocks and plants doing horribly, I'd rather just have rocks.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Makes 100%
Yeah, totally.
sense.
Yeah.
It almost sounds like you're going to consider putting in some plastic plants as well, just to get some green in there.
Maybe. Are you joking? I'm going.
Oh!
I can.
I was so taken aback by that, Cam. I was so confused.
I told you
I
I was
thought
looking
you were
forward to
being serious for a minute there.
Oh.
No, I think no plants will probably be what I'll do.
Yeah, that's fair. It's very hard to do a really good trophiest tank. It's really hard to do a really good trophiest tank with plants. So I totally understand. And if plants are your thing, doing them half-assed isn't going to work for you whatsoever.
That's absolutely it. I've got some Anubias in the bigger fry tank, and it's just horrid. I don't even like looking at it.
Yeah, wow. Yeah.
It doesn't count as an Anubias plant anymore because it's all mangled.
Yeah.
This next question is related to aquascaping, but we can put it into your general fish keeping. Have you had any major setbacks while keeping fish or with your aquascaping?
Yeah,
Time.
absolutely. I quit aquascaping 4 times. I just was like, this is absolutely atrocious. I hate this. This sucks. I'm leaving. Just every nightmare that I could, you get told when you start aquascaping by the world that algae is horrible, and if you get it, you're bad at this, right? Which I don't agree with anymore, and I wish I never did. But you get algae, you're like, I'm terrible at this. I can't get rid of it because I don't know enough. And no one really helps anybody. You can't actually help someone that well on the internet without going and explaining it. Personally, that's how I feel. Or if you don't know the tank, I don't know the tank, I don't know your tank, so I can't really tell you what's going on. Mm-hmm. So I felt lost, quit. Mm-hmm. Even if you talk to someone, hi, I've got algae, they're like, what kind? You're like, I don't know, it's been 2 weeks of plant keeping. Yeah. So I've had heaps.
Yeah.
Sold all my stuff.
That doesn't sound like something you'd do. Have a wee tanty and throw your toys.
Oh, whatever. I'm gonna have one live.
Mention plastic plants, we might just see it.
It's just one of those things that if I'm not into it, why bother doing it?
Yeah, fair enough. I get it.
We talked about it yesterday. If you don't want to come into your fish room because it's terrible in there and everything makes you feel bad, you just don't come in here.
Yeah. Yeah.
But instead of selling everything now, I just don't come in here or I leave Facebook for a bit.
Yeah. Have you recently left Facebook again?
Absolutely.
I thought you had. I tried to tag you in the post about this live stream yesterday. Where's he gone this time? He's probably just
go please.
Fantastic. Aquascaping involves a lot of creativity. Where do you find your creativity from? What inspires you? Have you always been creative and artistic, or is it just something that's happened because you've enjoyed looking at stuff and just developed over time?
I personally don't see myself as a massively creative person. I'm not artistic, but I think for me, my inspiration comes from a combination of aesthetics and hard science. And plants will only do what plants will do, and people try to make them do other things all the time, and sometimes it just doesn't work. So working with a hard set, it's also really loose at the same time. It's hard to explain, but I think my inspiration comes from I don't think it's nature, because a lot of these things don't naturally look like this. Actually, look, I don't know. Pass.
Okay.
No, I don't think that I am genuinely that creative, but I must have something, because I've been told that things look nice that I create.
Yeah.
You know, but I will be like, oh yeah.
When you start aquascaping and you're leaning over the tank and you've got the rocks in there, what is it you're thinking about? Like, are you trying to replicate something that you've seen, or do you just go for a vibe and just randomly do it until it looks right?
Well, I've seen what people have used as inspiration in nature, and then they've made it into the tank, and I can't see the correlation between the inspiration and the tank, right? Like, so someone says, this is what inspired me, and it's like a valley mountain, and then their tank is just moss on a rock. You know, like, it doesn't make sense to me. So I just do it, what looks aesthetically pleasing to me, and the plants do all the work in my tanks.
Yeah.
So I would like most of my tanks, when I plant them, I'm just focused on plant positioning.
Right.
And then I'll put rocks in, but I often take rocks out because there's not enough room for plants.
Mm-hmm.
Do you consider yourself an aquascaper or a plant grower?
Cam. I have never said out loud that I am an aquascaper.
Cool. So
I like plants in tanks. So yeah, I'd say I grow plants, but I think it takes away credit of what I've done if I say I'm not an aquascaper.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So for the record, I've got the ability to cut that little sound bite down that you just said. I have never said I am an aquascaper, so I can now use it. My ringtone is going to be I am an aquascaper from now onwards.
You know, Nelson's not that far away, and I've got the day off. I can come see you this afternoon if you like.
Hey,
And you
I'll put
could
the coffee on
aquascape
really
together.
No, we don't agree on anything when it comes to aquascaping, Cam and I. We'd never be able to make a tank. Look, can I put more seeds?
For the record, the planted tank in the aquarium that I have dubbed BMW was very much inspired by Braxton.
Well, that's because you keep judging me, and I keep judging you for it.
Yeah, you're real judgy.
No.
Mm-hmm.
And look at it now. It's great.
Yeah, I consulted with him over and over again, placement, plants, all the way through the process, and hence why I've named it BMW. And yeah, the results are absolutely fantastic, and I'm really happy with that. So yeah, very much inspired by your effort, Mr. You are not an aquascaper, you're a plant grower.
Well, I don't think I'm rude. I think I'm blunt. And blunt is often seen as rude. Or like honest plus blunt equals rude.
That's fair. Yeah.
And I don't like that, but sometimes it just, and especially if you've got an idea about someone and they type something online, everything I say I feel like is received like I'm a real mean person. But I don't think I'm a mean person.
It's really hard to take tone on white with black. It's really hard, but then tone of people properly communicating so much easier. Yeah. Rightio. What is the most challenging aspect of aquascaping or plant growing that you have come across?
It's getting into it. It's getting into it and staying into it long enough to get anything done. Like if you come into it and you want something, it does, like, it's something that requires a lot of learning the hard way, in my opinion. Like you have to take the setbacks and then still want to go forward. Like you have to shut down 4 tanks because they're terrible just to go and try and make the 5th.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, dealing with wet arms, wet carpet, wet floor, you know, like it's like yeah. That's what I think about that.
Yeah, it's a grind sometimes, but I think when you've got an idea for one tank and you're hell bent on getting there, sometimes other tanks go out the window, so it makes sense to either shut them down or just kind of put them on a back burner and focus everything you've got. You sometimes find that I find as well, I take things out other tanks to build up the main tank that's got my attention at that point. 2 months later, I could be taking stuff out that tank and putting it in another tank.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And that's what I love about keeping multiple tanks. You've got all that there, and you can just dip your arm in, take it out, boom, boom, and just constantly just renewing the interest in every different tank.
Yeah,
it's awesome.
Yeah, that's good. I agree with that. That's exactly what happens in my room as well. Like this could look good in there, and then sometimes you ruin both of them, and then you just leave them both alone for ages.
But it's all learning.
Yeah.
A common theme when we talk to other planted tank people, aquascapers, whatever you want to call them, or even long-time hobbyists, is they have hordes and hordes of hardscape hanging around. Are you in that similar place? You've just got hordes and hordes of hardscape about for your next aquarium or to play around with?
I have some, but I don't really tend to use much wood. So I don't collect wood.
Yeah.
I've got a couple of pieces here and there, and I have some rocks. But yeah, no, I'm not. I'm more of a guy who can't get rid of like certain plants. They have to live somewhere else.
Yeah.
I can always get wood.
I was going to say, part of your job, you'd be going around and seeing a lot of wood on the ground and that kind of stuff. So your ability to collect it on a regular basis would be right up there.
Oh, yeah. But the problem is a lot of them, I don't know how they correlate with like safety for aquariums. And when I say safety, like sometimes you put something in the tank like wood and it just ruins everything. Like it's got something in it and it doesn't kill anything, but it just makes it so gross for so long. And rocks don't really tend to do that because the rocks that will do anything are quite obviously
rocky.
Well, the kind of rocks that will do like change pH or whatever, or like KH. They tend to look like that. Like Oamaru stone is a sandstone, right? That looks to me like if I put it in water, it will do something. Whereas basalt, which is inert, doesn't do anything, looks like it's not going to do anything. Like if you can crush something in your hand and you're going to put it in water, whereas with wood, something looks really good, but it's also poisonous.
Yeah, I know we've had a couple conversations about randomly collecting things, and I've said, "Have you tried this? Yes or no? What was the results? All that kind of stuff." And the general consensus is throw it in and find out. But don't be moronic with it. Don't put like 5 kilos worth of leaves into a tank that's only 100 liters. Put a few in just to see how it goes, kind of scenario.
Exactly. Yep. That's basically how I do it with everything.
Yeah. And
a lot of those seed pods.
My boundaries little. You're far away.
I've found with a lot of the seed pods and leaves and things, it just becomes like I don't know how it works with people who do it seriously with botanicals, but I find it just attracts all of the algae. Like every tank I've got that I've put like a seed pod in or something, it's just like bang, grossest algae.
Or weird bits of detritus and mulm and mucky stuff all around it as well.
Yeah, like it just gets yucca. Like it's just more yuck, I think is the way it works.
But in a botanical aquarium, it becomes el natural and then is accepted, and I like it.
Hey, that's a good point, yep. Because if I put a seed pod in here and it got all gross, you'd be like, oh.
Yeah.
What's that doing in there?
Yeah. Definitely. But you throw it into a tank that's suitable for it, you'd go, wow, that is just gorgeous. That's perfect.
It's so good. It's just so lovely how brown that water is. Yeah.
Yeah. Love it. Do you have any basic advice for people that are wanting to set up a planted aquarium or an aquascape for the first time around?
Absolutely. Find someone who is going to be really kind to you. Kind doesn't necessarily be nice, but like someone who's one-on-one going to help you through the process. Do not put it on the internet. until you are ready to either A, impress someone, or B, take the abuse. Because I'm not saying that the world is evil, but the communities on the internet are very unpleasant.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
I've got a guy in Dunedin who I give plants to and I help quite closely. And anytime they're like, "Oh, should I?" I'm like, "Don't put it up. Don't do it. You're too fragile. You won't like what you hear."
Mhm. There's always somebody ready to critique,
Yeah.
and they're brutal.
Inevitably, have they
Is
put
that
it up?
an aquascape? Yeah.
Yeah. Why is that plant there? That's not enough
Yeah.
CO2.
Yeah.
Perling's
But
bad.
if you message me and say, "Is this plant in the right place?" I will say, "I think it should go here." And there's not like 150 people getting to put their opinions in.
Mm-hmm.
Is it
We
a prime
asked,
example? Far
sorry,
away,
Cam, just to lead on to what you've just said about the finding like a mentor. We ask a lot of aquascapers if what's their advice for somebody looking to get into this, and every single one of them say find somebody and hold on to them like a lifeboat, and just get all the advice and support from one person. It seems to be the way.
Well, you muddy the water. As soon as you have like 40 people who have got no, this sounds like it's personal. No, if you've got like a bunch of people all with a couple of ideas of how something works, muddying the water of help me, my tank is blah, blah, blah. They're all like, yeah, your cycle's crashed. Too much. Blah. And you're like, one guy could just say, I think you need to change more water. And he listens to that, change more water. If that doesn't work, go back to the one guy who said, change more water. You don't have to defend anything either. Like, if I trust you to tell me how to do something, when you tell me something, I don't instantly get my back up and say, oh, what do you know? Because I've asked you a question. The answer shouldn't hurt my feelings. That's the thing, I think.
Yeah.
We just had a comment from our viewers. I'll just bring up Ashley Mackenzie-White. Says she knows from her own experience that you give wonderful plant advice.
Well, that's my sister. She actually lives in Scotland.
Oh, does she?
Yeah.
Ah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, she made a comment on Instagram, I think it was yesterday, when I was putting we post up about this. And I saw the name and I was like, I wonder if that's a relation. So I'm glad that she's popped up and put a message in the chat, because now I don't have to ask you because you've already told us.
Oh, yeah.
Cool.
That's my older sister.
Cool.
So
she
she
can
ginger
as well? What was that?
Sorry, I missed that. Oh, it isn't. What's going on here?
Nothing.
Oh, okay, cool. I was going to say she can now claim that she's got a celebrity in the family.
Steady on, eh?
All right, cool. We've discussed your maintenance and your trimming and stuff like that. Fertilizer wise, CO2 wise, aquasoil wise, where do you stand with that? What do you do? How do you make all that work as well?
I think if you want to achieve certain things, you have to have certain other things, right? So when it comes to aquasoil nowadays, they're all pretty much the same thing, I think. Like, I haven't had one that's grown my plants incredibly well. Like, they all grow well. None of them have been like, oh, this is amazing. And you've got certain brands that cost way more, but I don't think it's personally worth it. Fertilizer, I think if you can find a good, complete fertilizer for your first one, like, you don't want to be adding macros and micros to your own water if you have no idea what you're doing. So, like, if you get something from someone who normally has a good track record of like there's the aquascaper Dennis Wong. He has a range of fertilizers, right? You see his plants because he's very like plant heavy, and he's got complete fertilizers. And if you want what he has, you buy those fertilizers, right? That's how I feel. CO2 must have. If you don't have CO2, I don't know what you're doing. And once you've had CO2, it's very hard to not have CO2.
Certainly is. Wow.
So consider that when you're going into CO2. Like people talk about my nice low-tech tank. It's like, yeah, do you have 4 years? Like my low-tech downstairs, incredible. Did it take 4.5 years? Yes.
Yeah. Is that your big tank with all the crypts that you're going to be swapping over for the Tropheus?
Yeah. It's about time, really. It's been so long.
Yeah. You've sent me multiple photos of that over multiple times, multiple years. And I've tracked it as a journey just via Messenger. And that's been cool enough for me to see that. So, yeah.
Well, the thing about that one is that's dirt and sand.
Yeah.
Which is something that I think people describe as a beginner thing, but it's absolutely not. Like if you can buy a bag, 9 kilo bag of aqua soil that's ready to go, that isn't going to just destroy the earth we live on, like when it goes wrong, buy one. Like, why would you not? Like, if you've got a cat dirt with sand, you always have holes in it and you always have meltdowns. And like that tank downstairs had diatoms for 8 months. Right? Until I found the hole in the cap and I covered it and they went away. But if you didn't know that, would you spend 8 months? If that was your first tank with dirt and sand, first tank ever, do you think you'd wait 8 months to figure it out?
No,
you'd be like, it's all gone pear-shaped. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. It's awful. I hate this. I quit. Yeah.
That's a fair call. I've got a tank at the back where I just grow plants in, and it was a very rich dirt mud. It wasn't soil, but like a plant growing mud sort of scenario, capped with sand. And like I set 4 or 5 up at the same time, various substrates, and that one was always full of algae. I was well aware that was the reason. It was leaching, and it was going to do its thing over time. And it was bright neon green for months, and all of a sudden, it just cleared out. And like I knew what it was. Everything else was going fine, maturing, and just took its time. But if that was like my one and only, or one of my very few display tanks in my house, I'd lose my lolly by then.
Well, that's another thing that I'd say is always have a few on the go, because when one's being a bastard, you can go look at one that's being really kind to you.
Yeah, it reminds you why you're doing it.
Yeah, so you go to one and you go, man, I can't stand this tank today. You just turn 180 degrees, look at another one. Oh, the one I'm not on looks great.
Yeah.
I'll feed you today.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I forgot about you. You guys hungry? Yeah. That's exactly right.
Totally.
Speaking of feeding fish, what fish do you keep?
What fish do I keep?
Yeah.
Oh, well, okay. Start downstairs. I have 4 turquoise rainbows, blue rainbow fish. I have 19 scissortail rasboras.
Nice.
Incredibly underrated fish.
All in the same tank?
Yeah, the tank is 650 litres.
650? Yeah, cool.
It's actually a 90 litre, and I've just got them all just punished.
Yeah.
And then there's probably 60 ember tetras in there. Some black mollies that I threw in there when they were annoying me. A pistogramma, cacatoides, something red, who's just been in there since day one. Just cruises around. I had to selectively feed him for a while because everyone was way too fast for him. Then I got mountain minnows, white cloud mountain minnows. I have 1 killifish. I have 24 Tropheus de Boise. I have 3 bell frogs. Glowlight Danios. Is that what I was looking for before?
Yeah, it was. Yeah. Again, the inspiration why I've got my glow lights in there as well.
Oh, they're incredible. Like they're the best.
They're so cool.
Hard to take photos of though.
Yes.
And in here, I have what's left of my blue phantom tetras. They are the biggest. Okay, so I have trophies over in this corner, and there is more aggression in this tank here with those tetras than I've seen in any fish I've ever kept.
They emperor tetras.
Yep.
Yeah, they can be toy little shit sometimes. A lot
Well,
of
what's
times.
funny about it is they've bred like 8 times, and I've just been separating out every male that looks like a jerk, put them downstairs in the big tank, and they live in harmony, just like getting bigger and more blue and more purple.
Do you think it's a space thing? They've got more room, so they're okay?
They swim around together down there.
Yeah, okay. Yep.
They're all like, we're friends down here, but not upstairs.
Yeah. Because you've got your tetras breeding in that tank, would you consider yourself a master breeder?
Absolutely. Like I was going to wait till you asked me that question, and the answer is yes. Like,
didn't want to subtly bring it up. Needed me to do it naturally.
Send me the certificate.
It seems like you're not just a plant keeper, you're also a fish keeper, despite contrary beliefs.
Despite constant battle with others that I hate them. I started with fish, and I believe that fish and plants, right, are both like they're both very important to each other. Like I can't even imagine now, other than fish that don't have plants in their natural environment, why you would still nowadays like go somewhere and buy a fish and put it in a tank without a plant. Like that argument to me is insane.
Yeah, I think in this day and age, and the availability of live plants, there's not really any reason not to put some live plants in.
Well, I mean, if I had to sell someone a setup for their fish, I would start with, well, our substrate needs to have something in it to grow the plants. And if they said what plants, I'd say it's better to start now with plants than it is to get down the track and want to add them, because your gravel's not going to do great things for it.
Yeah.
But even if your plants are bad, they're still better for the fish, in my opinion. Like the minnow tank is just bad offcuts of plants, but it's still healthy as the tank itself. The environment where those fish live is way better. I don't have to do anything to it. Like it's just easier, better, more natural. Don't question me because it's right. It's basically it.
That little dig then has just totally pushed me off where I was going with my train of thought. So thank you for that.
I'm sure you've got one written down.
I've got a few things written down that I've been just sort of ticking along with. What's your thoughts on using likes of pothos and monsteras and stuff like that coming out of aquariums in situations where plants don't sort of live naturally? So, as an example, the diamond tetra tank that we've set up has little to no plants found in those waterways. But I'm trying to figure out a way of trying to do that. So some sort of immersed growing plant is how I'm going with that. The Tropheus could be another option, that although they might eat the roots on them. What's your opinions and thoughts on that sort of scenario?
I personally think do what you want. I've got pothos in my cichlid tanks just because I had cuttings, but also I do believe that it does help the water quality.
Yeah.
I'm not a big fan of open top tank with just everything growing out the top. Like, I just think it's a bit of a phase that everyone's going through, and I don't want to upset anyone, but I don't personally love it. But in an environment where your tank has no plants in it, plants above it make sense if it's a biotope, because that's how it works, right? Like where they live, there will be plants above them.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm absolutely fine with it. I just I do it for water quality purposes, which I don't even know if it's like really that helpful anymore. Like people always try to prove things wrong, but I do like that the roots give them things to nibble on. And I'm into it, but not as like a visual power move.
Yep.
Like it as a prototype or a functional thing.
Yep. I know, almost like the addition of a filter, so to speak.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you've got all the stuff up the wall behind the tank, I think it's just a bit overkill.
I'm never going to show you a photo of my tank ever again because that's exactly what I want to do.
Well, there was a key to what you just said there.
What I want to do?
You said my tank. It's not mine.
Yeah.
Do what you want.
Yeah. To be fair, that's also something that I've tried to preach as much as possible. If you're looking at it, it's in your house and you enjoy it. That is all that matters. Does not matter what other people think. Although it's in my shop, so other people are going to see it as well.
But it's not a gallery, is it? Like, you're not like, come see my gallery.
No.
Where you can have an opinion of my stuff, you know? It's like, if you don't want the opinion of others, like I said, keep it offline. Like, do not enter that world. Like, I'm not like justifying judgment. I'm saying that I don't like posting things or putting things out to public just because you have to, like, get your sword and your shield out and go to battle.
Yeah.
Dude, why'd you do that?
I understand.
Yeah.
The other day, we spoke about the difference between a planted tank, and an aquascape. Do we want to touch on that and your thoughts on the different types of aquascapes, the different sorts of planted tanks and different planted aquariums?
I think an aquascape to me is the same as like terrarium, vivarium, paludarium, blah, 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 blah. It's what you want to call it to someone when you introduce them to it. Like, this is a planted tank. This is also an aquascape. But this is also a tank with plants in it. You know, it kind of depends, you know, like, so paludarium is just a terrarium with more water, right? But I could just say it's just a terrarium with more water.
Yeah.
So,
It doesn't sound as cool, though.
Was that?
It doesn't sound as cool when you say it that way.
No, that's exactly right. So if I say I have planted aquariums at home, someone's going to come and go, those are aquascapes. I'll be like, no, I've decided they're planted aquariums. But I did think about this after yesterday, Cam, that if you look on Reddit, right, the Reddit planted aquariums, go through that thread and have a look at the things that people are talking about or the things that people are showing off. Just take it in and then have a look over on the Reddit/Aquascape and the like sort of, you can just see what the difference is.
Mm-hmm.
And like the differences tend to be, it's hard to explain with like nice words, the step that gets taken between a planted tank and an aquascape.
Yeah.
You know, like it's just I think it's an entirely imagined throne to sit upon.
Mm-hmm.
Is the aquascape a throne?
Just a title that people like you want to have.
Yes.
So I guess when you've got a planted tank, and then it just takes that step to become more artistic. That's when it kind of leans into the aquascaping realm, where it's more purposeful and the layout is more
deliberate.
Deliberate. Yeah.
But then you could argue that most people put plants in deliberately in a way that I know it's always.
For a long time, I would just put plants in at the back and just push them out the way and let them do their thing, and that was it. They were a place for fry to hide, or a place that produced snails for the other fish. That was all they were until I kind of came across George Farmer's aquascapes, and that was that.
Well, yeah.
Do you think I'm going to say current trend, but I don't think it's a current trend. But do you think the current trend with aquascaping is benefiting the aquarium hobby as a whole, or do you think it's going to negatively affect it in the long run? There's two different questions there. Well done.
Do you mean aquascaping in general on the hobby, or do you mean the trend in aquascaping?
In general on the hobby, because we're going to talk about trends with aquascaping later on.
Okay, yeah. I think it's probably good because more people are going to want to get into it. But I'm not sure if it's going to be all around positive.
Okay.
Sure.
Explain that, please.
Well, look, I don't always want to talk about it, but there is like a fight between fish keepers and aquascapers, right? And as a hobby, it's terrible, but it happens.
Mm-hmm.
And there is like I'm an aquascaper, not a fish keeper, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is garbage. And it's just the most annoying, valid reason to leave Facebook every month or so. So I don't think it's great. I don't think it's awesome as a trend, but I like it as a thing to do. But I don't think it's going to be completely positive, not completely negative, but it's going to have to, something's going to have to change, like an all-out street fight or something. Fish keepers versus aquascapers.
Scissors and tongs and curved scissors on the go.
And you guys bring nets.
Yeah. Bags of the apple.
Do you think that maybe just changing the narrative to all aquarium keepers might make everything better?
It won't work because the self-appointed throne position of the aquascaper.
Fair.
I'm going to make some enemies today.
We should all be fish keepers, but some of us like the aquascape. It should be a thing, not a title, I think.
Oh, and I don't actually care. You can call me whatever you want when it comes to fish keeping or aquascaping because I'm not in a position where it bothers me. It's not like taking my title of doctor away if I was a doctor. It's like I still get to do it in my spare room in my house. It's not. Yeah. You're not an aquascaper. Okay, cool, man. You're going to take them out of my house?
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. I really need to learn to write notes down better because I had something else as you were talking then and I just totally forgot to write it down. I know, right? I'm really average at what I do.
Oh, settle down. You're doing great.
Do you think, was there anything exciting in the current trends of aquascaping itself that's exciting you?
The tissue culture plants is really cool.
Yeah.
But with that comes the idea that you're nothing if you don't have those ones. Which is a bit like, come on, none of us had them. None of us had those. And if you don't, it's one thing to have them, it's another thing to grow them.
Yeah.
So there's the plant collection side of it, which made me feel really gross. And then but I'd say that's my biggest thing that I'm really excited about is being able to get the same tissue culture plants that you've seen online elsewhere in the world forever.
Yeah.
I
think that is a huge positive step for New Zealand aquarium keepers in general, that we have those. It might not be the full range that's available worldwide, but
it's never going to be, is it?
Something. It's better than what we ever had, and it's a great start.
Well, the interesting thing was that when those tissue cultures started coming, seeing people think that because they were tissue cultures, the list would be endless.
Yeah,
was crazy. It's like, why do you think we can't just get them because now we can get Tropica, so we can get every Tropica plant that's it's still on the list. Doesn't matter how it gets there; it's still illegal. Yeah.
You touched on before plant collection, and it made you feel gross.
Yeah.
Can you explain that a little bit?
I just think it's gross with houseplants. It was gross with everything. It's like if you start capitalizing on something that naturally will continue to grow after you cut it, and you're trying to get people hyped up for certain plants, and then when they say, "Oh, you've got one, I'll have one," you say, "Yep, $800." It's like taking something that I love and making it into a capitalist horror show.
Yeah, I understand. I took your plant collection in the terms of there is 15 variety of cryptocorynes here. I need to catch them all like Pokemon. There is 10 different Echinodora species. I want to collect them all. Collecting them as opposed to growing them.
Absolutely, that's what I'm saying. But what you're saying leads to what I'm saying. right? So you want the Echinodoros I have, I'm just going to say, well, $900 because it's rare. You know, that's the...
Yeah.
And it's just like, challenges don't feel like, because of I don't know, the challenge of growing something doesn't feel as pure when you just do it at home if you're like showing it online. You know, like, here's my plant collection, and someone goes, oh, is that it used to be like kind of fun, but now it's like a flex.
Yeah. Do you think that plants that are harder to grow should have that collector's price tag to it more so than rarer ones? Because rare and hard to grow are two different things.
I think hard to grow shouldn't cost more because it would cost me more money, because that's like where my challenges sit now. Whereas rare to me, eventually it's going to end up at my house, like because it's a plant that grows, people just take cuttings and just flood their own market. You know, it's like eventually I will get what is deemed rare now if I keep in the hobby looking for it, and you know, like. So I don't think expensive should be hard to grow, but expensive and rare makes more sense to me, although I don't like it that much.
Mm-hmm. I think that the bigger price tag should come in when it's harder for retailers, or not retailers, but wholesalers to get these plants, and they've got to go through a different channel. They're not mass produced by Tropical or something, because they produce them in mass the same way almost for all the plants. So they should be classed as the same price. But if there's certain plants that they've got to grow in a completely different manner, then I think they are entitled to raise the price accordingly.
But I mean, when those tissue cultures came, I would have paid 3 times what I paid for them. Just that.
The tissue cultures are a game changer. They are absolutely a game changer. We've had them over here for a while.
And like the numbers in a little thing, like buying like Anubias petite, right? Nana petite, for years before that, you'd be like, oh, I'm going to have to wait 25 years to grow it onto this log. Whereas you could buy 5 pots of Tropica and you've done what people overseas will do. Or, you know, you can fill a whole tank with it for $200, which sounds like a lot, but to me, that's a fair price to pay for that much of something.
Speaking of the Nana Petite, I've had that plant, I don't know, for as long as I can remember now, and it grows so insanely slow, and I've managed to take not a lot, but a few trimmings for people, cutting, send them away sort of stuff. When they came in via tissue culture, I was so relieved that they are going to be now widespread, that I know there's more people than just me with them. But if mine wants to die, I can at least get it back again.
Yes, yeah, that's exactly right.
If there was 4 people, clearly there's more. If there's 4 people with them and everyone has a massive malfunction, that plant's gone. That plant is not being lost in New Zealand ever again because it's now available. And there was such a huge relief that it's going to be here forever now, basically. And I'm pretty sure that Anubias Nana Gold has come in since as well, and that was a very similar thing. I've had that plant for so long, and it's such a slow-growing plant, but now it's readily available, and it's just not going to disappear.
You sent me some like 3 years ago, I think.
Yeah.
And it was the same size, almost throughout its entire life.
It's just anyway. Yeah, but yeah, they're not disappearing. They're here now for good, and that's a massive positive thing. And if people want to be collecting plants, there's an outlet for them to collect different species that they want.
Yeah.
It's a hugely positive thing. Right, back to my questions. Do you think that aquascaping has a we're rolling? I was going to say conservation. Do you think there's people that take that into account when they're setting up aquariums and conservation on different plants, different fish stuff?
Yes and no.
Yeah.
I think it's nice for people to be able to understand how an ecosystem works. But as far as conservation goes, I think that's about where it ends. Like, in my opinion, like, I don't know, it's hard to explain because if you definitely care about conservation of small fish, you'd probably be fighting for habitat protection overseas.
Yep.
You'd be fighting for that. You wouldn't be keeping them really well in your house. You know, like that's, and I'm not digging at you or anybody, but that's how I feel about it. It's like, I understand that it's nice, but it's like, as far as conservation goes, I don't think it helps in that way.
It's a really
answer I can give.
A really ethical question: is keeping fish in a glass box ethical? Full stop. Let alone whether they're endangered or not. Is it ethical to do so? That's a massive question.
I would say no.
Yeah.
Morally, like if you've got the weights, like the morals, is it morally wrong? Maybe. Ethically wrong? If you do it right, I don't think so. But that's my argument we've had together many times, is you can't really be pointing fingers at anyone doing anything when the whole thing on its own, it's
questionable.
It's questionable, yeah. So how dare you do this to that fish? Like, how dare you have that in a box without this plant in it? And you're like, well, it shouldn't be in a box at all at the end of the day. So it's either all okay or it's not okay.
And then you can break into the question, well, its parents were spawned in a glass tank. It's been spawned in a glass tank. Its generation's going to be spawned in the glass tank. It knows nothing different. It's never been wild caught.
You could.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, like, when you're pointing fingers, not you, but like when people are pointing fingers at certain things, I'm always like, you do know that it's hard to stand on a box when everything you do is like deemed by certain organizations or certain groups as cruel straight off the bat. You know, so within ourselves, infighting about how people are doing things, when the whole thing is seen from others as bad, seems a bit stupid to me.
Yep, that's a fair call.
Yeah,
absolutely fair call. When you're setting up a aquascape or a planted tank or whatever as we want to call it, how do you work on balancing your plants? Do you have something in the mind that you're going with that, or do you go, I really want to theme it around this? How does that sort of process work for you with plants? Just what you've got, had a real strong interest in XYZ plant. How do you go there?
Well, if it's going to be something that I'm going to genuinely want to do, it's not going to really work out that way, is what I've learned. Like, I personally don't have an image in my head that I can put in front of me into a tank. Like, I admire anyone who can take something they've seen, process it here, and then put it in a tank. Like, that's amazing. But for me, mine's kind of like, I want it to be red in this corner and then red near that corner, but not symmetrical. So I put what will be red in that area, and then I just sort of fill it in. And if it starts looking gross within 3 days, I'll pull out something. And that's why aquasoil, again, is great. So I don't set up a tank and then that's it. Like, that's great. It's going to look good. So I'll start with colours, actually. Colours or leaf shapes.
Yep.
So if you need a big area blocked out, you just find something with a very small leaf or something that grows bushy. But then you've also got to take into account that, like, if you want to use crypts or swords, then the next shapes. It's all shapes to me, I think. Shapes and colours.
So the colour and the shape. Cool.
No, the shape and the colour.
Shape and the colour.
Shape and colour, yeah. Not colour and shape. That would be wrong.
Do you try and match plants for their water requirements, their growing requirements, lighting, not lighting, birds, all that kind of stuff into one tank, or do you just kind of make it all work, so to speak?
I've not had an issue with any plant that hasn't specifically said hard water plant. Like the only plant that I've had issues growing with growing is Cryptocorone balancei. Anyway, just hates me. Everything else, soft water, and it just grows real easy. But those ones just get to a certain length, tip dies, the end.
Yeah, I have experienced a little bit of that. It goes brown, then it just melts all the way down. Yeah.
But I'd say much like a garden, you're probably best working to the pH you're given, or like the hardness you're given. So like if your tap water comes out soft, you're away laughing because most of them are soft water plants. But as soon as I start having to harden water or whatever, or remineralizing RO water, I'm out of there. No, thank you.
Yeah.
Like I love this, but I'm not remineralizing 600 liters of water just because they become a job versus hobby, you know, like.
Yeah. And there's plenty of people that do that, and good for them. They're getting the results. They're getting what they want out of their hobby. But yeah.
If you want to complicate it further than I have, then go nuts. Like that's your thing. I love that. But for me, I'm just going to do it as well as I can without RO water.
Yeah. Hey, do you still hate Echinodorus?
I hate nothing, Cam.
Okay.
I'm a very well-rounded, loving individual. No, I do hate most of them, yes.
Yeah, cool. Yeah.
Only because they get enormous. And the ones that don't get enormous only don't get enormous because they don't grow very fast or they don't do very well.
Should we start calling them Enormous Adorus?
Harvey-Adorus or whatever it is, the one that looks like the little lettuce.
Yeah.
That doesn't grow very big because it sucks. Like it doesn't grow very big because it doesn't thrive. It's just
so. On that, the best results I've ever had with that plant is immersed. And it was pissed. No. I will not throw it out. I'm determined to make it work. I've never really managed to grow it underwater very well. Out of water, immersed, never really had an issue. I put a couple into that BMW tank, right beside the CO2 outlet, like millimeters away, and it's the best I've ever grown them underwater. But they haven't kept that standard lettuce rosette type shape. Some of the leaves are beginning to get really tall, like a standard Amazon salt, which I thought the growth was really, really interesting and different to what I've ever seen before.
Well, maybe it's just to make me suffer because you named the tank after me, and then you put a plant in it that I didn't like, and that's what's going to grow.
There's actually 4 sword plants in there, and yeah.
I'm not interested, Cam.
We went through the reasons why I put them in there and why I like them, and I will fall on my sword. You have been right in a couple of instances in that tank, and I have been wrong. I tip my hat.
I appreciate it. That's all you had to do. I'm wrong, you're right. The
end. Social media and aquarium keeping. What's your thoughts on that? Positives, negatives? How do you vibe with that, Mr. I jump on and off of Facebook every month?
I have been described by those who love me as quite a reactive person. Right? So Facebook and Instagram are terrible for my mental well-being and well-being of others around me because I can't let things go. And it's never feeling attacked. It's watching people attack others. And I watch people from a community that I appreciate going at someone new, and I just think, what's the point in this? I'm out of here. So but I will react before I go. So that's why I try not to go at all. Could it be the most positive thing ever? Absolutely. Is it? Not a chance. And that's how I genuinely feel about it. Like I go on there and you think that it could be really fun and nice and everyone's going to be great. Obviously, I don't. It's the internet, and it's been around for ages, and it sucks. But it's a community that is so small, being so crappy to each other, it's so hard to understand. Like, do you guys understand that, like, from the outside, we're just weirdos, and no one really thinks this is cool? So having power here is so lame. If you think you're the big man around here, it's aquascaping. Try meeting real human beings and telling them you're an aquascaper. They're not going to. Congratulations, man. Are you the boss of that? What is that?
Yeah.
I'm quite passionate about it because it always annoys me.
You know, I mean, for some people, aquascaping and aquarium is their entire world, and they put themselves up on this badass pedestal. And they go on Facebook and they go, wow, you do this and that, and they act like the king. But then they go to the workplace and then they don't mention aquariums or anything because they know that nobody even knows what he's talking about. So he goes from this lord, this in his own mind, this master, to a complete nobody because we care about this hobby. But most other people don't. So it's a community that's got to stay within, and then obviously.
I mean, I don't think we have to blow smoke up each other's asses, but I do think we need to be a little bit more supportive of something that, especially when it comes to new people coming in.
Yeah.
Like you said about half an hour ago, it's like first thing I will tell someone, if they get into it and they're like, I need help with this, I'm like, don't go online. Like, just don't do it because I know for a fact you're going to have a terrible time.
Yeah.
There needs to be a little bit more compassion, and equally, we've all started somewhere. We've all begun somewhere, and we're all in this together. We're all doing it because we love glass boxes, essentially.
If you post something saying, this is the best thing you've ever seen, I'm an expert, I am the best, you can get torn down because that's fine. But if someone says, hey, I'm really new here, my tank is terrible, and they put it up and everyone's like, algae, and they're like, well, they actually asked for help straight away. I'm new here, tick, can I have help? Tick, let's be assholes. Doesn't make sense to me.
And that kind of realms with my forever question is, how do we, A, get more people in the hobby, B, keep more people in the hobby? Not being dicks would probably help a lot of the way.
But most of the people who aren't dicks are doing it for long periods of time. If you're in it because you just enjoy suffering through water changes every now and then that suck and whatnot, you're going to stay forever. If you think it's awesome and you can make some money off some plants that you got, you're probably going to quit because something more valuable is going to come along anyway. Like, you have to really enjoy the shittest parts about it to stick around.
Yeah. And there is a lot of ups and downs in aquarium keeping.
Yeah, like knocking over your filter when you're cleaning it.
Pulling the hose off the top of a canister filter when it's going.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
The hose dropping out of the hole that it's meant to be draining through the drain and going onto the floor the whole time. Yeah. Having a power cut and your sump overflowing.
Yeah, or your pipe comes at the bottom of the U-bend as it just starts spraying water all over the curtains.
You spend $400 on trophies and kill 98% of them.
Yeah.
Finding your favourite fish dead for no real apparent reason.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what I'm saying, that we talk like that, but it's like you've got an experience, and you're still here. But if it's not right for you, you'll know pretty quick. And it shouldn't be that makes it not right for you.
Yeah, well, you know that it's right for you when you walk into the living room and you see your $400 saltwater fish jump out and die.
Yeah,
$400, just bump.
Just watch the money burning as it hits the ground.
Yeah. Had a an arowana one watched literally jump out. I was doing a water change. It just jumped and hit the ground. I was like, why have you done that? And picked it up like a slimy eel off the ground and put it back in.
They get called river monkeys for a reason.
Yeah, true. True. Because you've mentioned you're dying Tropheus again, why did you decide to go with Tropheus, and why did you decide to go with the dubs?
I like them.
Fair reason.
That's I like the idea of a single fish, cichlid tank, single species. I'm just not a big fan of that big
Fish soup.
fish soup. Just yeah, I'm more of like, I'd like to create one colony, looks great, lovely.
Yeah. Did you research on Tropheus? I mean, like, you decided you want to go down the cichlid route for a while, and you looked at a few options, then you're pulled to Tropheus, or was it like, I've seen these in videos, photos, whatever, man, I love them, I'm going to give them a go one day?
Well, I talked to Ryan.
Yeah.
And I told him what I didn't like, and he told me what it was cool, and I thought, I think those are cool after I researched them. And then, much like how I say that if you want to do something, you find someone who's willing to talk to you about it, and you just follow what they say. Right? So I stopped researching from that point because I trusted him. Well, I trust him.
Yeah.
And so it's everything that he said to do, I've done. And I Googled one thing and instantly regretted it. Because if you Google like water hardness for Tropheus to Boise, so it tells you all this stuff. And my water's not that hard, and they're not dead. You know, a lot of them were, yeah, sure, but I don't think that's why they died.
Yeah. That was all in a very short period of time after getting them, eh?
It was like 2 weeks of 20 dying.
Yeah.
Oh, 15 died, I think.
Cool.
Mm.
That didn't really lead on to the next question because we've already talked about that.
Mm.
And the next question is exactly the same.
All right.
Are you experienced enough with Tropheus to talk about misconceptions? Because we've definitely talked about the conceptions that they just decide to die for no reason.
I don't think I'm too inexperienced. I think my fish are too little.
Okay, yeah.
Like, I don't think they're at a point yet. Like, the ones I'm watching over here are starting to really amp up, picking little fights with each other, whereas the little ones just hang out. So I think what's happening is these guys, because they're getting their stripe in, I think going through what I'd like to call fish puberty.
Have they started changing colours yet?
Yeah, just.
Cool. I've always thought they'd be really fantastic. I'm sure lots of people do if they stayed that black with white spotty stars on them.
Yeah, but it's kind of cool watching them change.
Yeah. Is that part of the reason you might have been drawn to Tropheus? Because, like, frogs and stuff change as well, and there's just the whole biological, the animal thing moving in. It kind of ticks your brain over a little bit.
That's a good point. I didn't think of that.
You can just call me Dr. Cam from now on. I'm going to charge you $120 for the session.
Can I disappear for one moment?
Yeah, sure.
I think my dog's in the stairwell.
Yeah. We can take this opportunity to do the standard. Bleh. If you've liked this, please feel free to like, share, subscribe, and follow. Bleh. Passionately hate doing that, but we have done it. And saying that, I have very much enjoyed so far having a chat with Braxton. It has been very enjoyable. I don't think I have laughed on a live stream more than I have today. It's been great fun so far.
So how do you know Braxton then? I know he's fairly local. Did you just come into the shop one day and you just got to chatting?
So he lives down in Dunedin, which is 8-10 hours drive, maybe a little bit longer away. Right. It would have just been, he was definitely a customer with mine for a while ago.
Okay.
Back before we had the shop, and then I think probably just sent a message via Facebook and then just communicated and then pretty much communicate on a daily basis, give or take, about random fish stuff and plants and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah.
And you've got the aquarium in the shop that's named after him, is that right?
Yeah, yeah. So the planted tank, the dual lido that we set up just prior to Christmas, I consulted with him via Messenger basically the whole way through the journey, talking about plant options, what I wanted to achieve, all that kind of stuff. And he was very blunt with planting tips and advice. And there we are.
I was very.
What, sorry?
I was very patient with you.
You were.
I wasn't. I'm like, one word answers, I think, is where I get into trouble, because is this okay? And I say, no.
I believe there might have also been a couple of, what are you doing that for?
Why
have you picked that plant? You think it's going to go wrong. I told you so.
You just pull it down, tear it down, start again.
Yeah. Again, I'm going to probably admit, I love Sunset Polysperma. I think it is a beautiful stem plant, but it is so hard and unruly to keep under control.
It just doesn't grow. It just doesn't grow in any way that is manageable.
No, but it's really pretty.
But it also doesn't work as like a background plant either, because when you get to a point where you're like, it's getting taller and you want the shape or like the structure of the plant to look good, it just looks
awful.
Weird.
Yeah. But the tips of it with those beautiful pinks and white veins are just gorgeous.
Disagree.
Oh, shots fired. And now it's my turn to end the stream. I wonder, now we're talking about it, I wonder if, because I know like stargrass can be grown quite bushy if kept trimmed really neatly, like a wee hedge. I wonder if Sunset Polysperma could be trimmed down that low to get that colour in a hedge. Have you tried that?
No, it tends to just quit. Like it just gives up. Like the first throw of variegation tends to be like the best one. Like, so if you cut it and you poke it back in the ground, the substrate, that first bit that comes out tends to be the best bit I've found.
Right. Yeah.
But I had some that was doing terribly in like a really punishing tank, and it looked the best. So like sometimes optimum conditions for certain plants actually make them look not how you desire them to. Like plain polysperma goes pink. If you grow it under really high light, like if I put it in there, it would have like a pink hue to it.
Yeah, there's a few green stems that get slightly different shades under really intense lights as well.
Metallia's good for that.
Yeah.
And Buellia does it too.
Yeah. Twisted Vallisneria can go a red color as well under really intense lighting too.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's in my shit list too. I hate that plant.
Every time I've used it, it just goes wild, and I can't control it. It's just unbearable.
And the thing is, it's like you want it for one day to be in the back of your tank so you can check if it's going to be cool or not.
For a day.
Yeah.
But then it starts spreading forward, and you're like, this sucks. You pull it and it rips everything out.
Yeah. No in between. You either grows incredibly well, or it just grows this big and you get 3 plants from it. Yeah. I've been up and down that, and I've got the same variant because I got the plant from the same person in several different tanks. Some of them are going crazy, others aren't, which is really interesting. But you're right. Anytime I want it to grow purely along the back or along the edges, it always just creeps all the way forward without anything coming up to start with, and it grows at the front.
And nothing that can spread that you want to spread will.
Yeah.
Like if you want your crypts to spread out from buying one, not going to happen. You want the 4 twisted valves you bought to stay still. It's just going to go.
Yeah.
Because
and just to make it worse, it hates Flourish XL as well, just for fun.
Oh yeah, of course.
If you want to use that for algae treatments.
Because
it's a great plant. You should buy all of it.
What is?
Twisted Vallisneria.
Oh yeah.
In your opinion, what makes a great aquascape?
Like, are we talking like a display one?
Yeah, or what makes it stand out? What makes it look banging, as the kids say?
I think it has to draw you in. I think you have to want to look at it more than once. Or like you want to go and look at it and go, wow, and then go in and go, oh, and then oh, and then oh, and then the fish, wow, and that's. But if it's in your home and it just doesn't aggravate you, then
It doesn't aggravate you.
oh, you know what I mean when you like walk past it, you're like, oh,
Yeah.
I wish this wasn't in my house right now.
It's like a swamp.
You're like, I'm not doing anything with that, but I'm going to whinge about it.
Yeah.
I think to the naked eye, if you can get someone who doesn't like fish tanks or aquascaping to come to your house or happen to see one of your tanks and go, whoa, did you do that? And you go, I did that. And they go, that's really beautiful. Or that's really something. That's way better than some nerd online telling me how cool it is.
Yeah.
You know, because there's no perception of what is good or what is bad. They just look at it and say, whoa.
Oh, that's great.
What CO2 do you use?
Yeah.
Same as you. Yeah, like I get my wife to check my tanks, right? I say, does this look all right? She goes, yeah, it's pretty. Walks out. And I'm like, well, that's good. Job done.
Yeah. Yeah. Is it acceptable to have in the house? Yes.
Yeah.
We're under control for the next week.
Well, this room is isolated enough.
Yeah. Yeah.
Close the door.
Your room. It's your room. Do you let the children in that room?
Well, there's only one child and she's 18 months and it would, like, she loves coming in here to feed the fish just with me.
Right.
But if she came in here alone, death trap.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally.
But as she gets older, I imagine she'll enjoy it in here.
Cool. I like it. Have you entered any aquascaping competitions before?
No.
Why not?
I'm not a very competitive person.
Okay. Fair enough.
I am the type of person that will become competitive if I am deemed bad at something, but I might do it to prove a point. But I'm not like the idea that you are competing in something as believed to be tranquil is garbage, in my opinion, too. Make the most environment in 2 hours.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it takes away the element of what it is.
Yeah.
Make the calmest environment you can in 2 months' time. No pressure. So that sounds calming, you know?
Yeah.
Silly. I don't know. But if you want to do it, do it.
Yeah. Do you think aquascaping competitions have a relevant place in aquarium keeping in general?
Well, in my opinion, I think it just gives people a rank. And having a rank can often lead to the opportunity to be to judge or to be judged by others.
Yeah.
You know, like when you're in the competition, you're being judged by judges. But when you say I'm ranked 410th in the world, you're just putting a target on your back and everyone's going to be like, you know.
Yeah, I know. I understand. Well, I don't understand because I've never entered a competition. I never will. Or I never plan to, at least at this point in my life.
Nah, neither.
I've judged a contest.
Mm.
And that was hard enough. That was horrible having to see everybody. I mean, having done certain aquascapes myself, I know how hard it is and what the effort that goes into it.
Mm.
And when you're presented with maybe 50 or 60 different aquariums and you've got to go through them and critique every one of them, it's really difficult and really hard to look at them from that judgmental point of view. It's difficult.
Were you judging in a live scenario or in pictures?
Pictures.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Do you have any future projects or dream aquascapes that you're kind of thinking about working on, other than, I guess, your trophiest one's the next one coming up?
I think the trophiest one will just be put a bunch of basalt rocks in it.
But you being you're going to want to make it look aesthetically pleasing. You're not just going to dump a bunch of rocks in there, are you?
I'm trying so hard not to think about it too much.
I'm going to remind you.
Leave it. But I think for me, I think a lot of people want to aquascape something big, right? But I did that first. Well, not first, but like I've done big tanks, and it's not actually very awesome at all. Like, it's a lot of work if it's got CO2, and then you take the CO2 off, and it turns to garbage for a bit, and then it comes back again. But I don't know. So when you say dream or future aquascape, they're probably more likely to be this size, the smaller one, which is like 80 liters anyway.
Mm-hmm.
I absolutely understand what you're saying. You're obviously aware that I picked up a particularly large aquarium not long ago, and I'm daunted by what I'm going to do with that. To fill that up with plants and get them healthy is going to be an astronomical type of task. So,
really, Cam. I don't think it will be. Approach it in the same way you do with any other aquarium. It's more volume, more plants.
Well, if you had told me I was giving you all of my crypts, Cam, remember?
I don't have anywhere for them. By the time I was going to use them, they would be mushy nubs. On saying that, crypts are pretty good. If you just got the roots, they'll grow back.
Mm-hmm.
But,
I mean, if I leave that now, where I've pulled them all out, where a lot of them have probably been snapped out, I reckon they'll all just come back.
Guarantee it. No. If you just snap them or cut the leaves off, they will come back. It's just what they do.
Another thing about big aquascapes, though, is it gives you an opportunity to learn how big plants are when they're grown to their actual size. So when people are like, there's no cryptocorini that is a small one, other than things like parva, which we don't get here. Most of them will grow like this tall, given the opportunity.
Yeah. That is one thing that I'm very much looking forward to playing around with that tank, is really letting some big plants do some big plant stuff.
Yeah, big mother plants.
Cool. Aquascaping in New Zealand, how do you see that evolving over the next couple of years?
How do I see it evolving? I think if we, as a community, can get together slightly more often or at all, it might work quite well. I feel like more people will come along, come into the hobby just naturally, but I hope they don't get scared away by the stuff that I've already talked about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It'll evolve with, we've always got that cap on top of where our hobby can go because of what we talk about all the time, which is the lists and of things we can't keep.
Yeah.
So someone's going to come into the hobby and you see someone ask if anyone's got certain plants, and you're like, 9 out of 10 of those are illegal here. So, well, what can I grow? And you're like, well, funny thing is, there are alternatives, but none of them look like that. So what you've got your heart set on starting aquascaping with is immediately caps put on, and that's it,
Do you think the cause of that is for people discover aquascaping on YouTube or Facebook? It's people from all over the world that they're seeing, and they're looking at these big accounts, and they're falling in love with these plants.
Absolutely.
Turn around and then they realise obviously New Zealand's quite restricted and they can't get these plants, and for a lot of people it instantly puts them off it. Maybe. So I think maybe a solution or a potential solution to that is to encourage more people in New Zealand to get more active on YouTube and things and really kind of promote the hobby from a New Zealander's point of view.
It's also a very interesting question for me as just a hobbyist. I don't sell. I sell spears and whatnot. I sell it, but to me, the hobby doesn't have to do anything more than it's already doing. I don't really care who comes in or who leaves because, like I've said, it's what I do.
Yeah.
And it's cool if heaps of people want to join in, but it doesn't actually affect me personally.
It's a very individualized hobby. If you don't want people to know that you keep aquariums,
You don't
the
have
only
to.
person that's going to know is probably the person you walk into the shop to buy your stuff off, or online or what have you. If that's the way you want to keep your hobby, if you want to be a real hermit about it, you could have a room under your house with 500 aquariums just for you. Or you can go to the parties and tell everybody that you're an aquarium keeper.
Oh, you know how I mentioned I had a wife earlier?
Yeah.
Yeah, apparently.
That's by not mentioning aquariums at parties. So if anyone's listening, that's it. Don't tell anyone. And then slowly you introduce it. Slowly.
Yeah. When you said get-togethers, do you mean like as a general aquarium society as a whole, community as a whole, or the aquascaping side of it? Like, is the numbers of aquascapers in New Zealand big enough to do that, or is the aquascaping community still going to have to ride on the aquarium community, breaking them apart for that kind of growth?
Well, I think as a whole, we all need to stop thinking that specializing in certain parts of it make you a different human being. Like, at the end of the day, it's all really kind of pointless. Like, you are doing something that is so pointless that you may as well appreciate that other people do it too.
Yeah.
That's about as flat as I can get it. Like, I mean, it is so pointless how good you are at this too. Like, it just gets to a point where you're just like, I like plants and boxes and fish, and I like talking to other people who do it, but it's not any more than that for me. That's me.
If you didn't keep fish tanks, what would you be doing instead?
I don't know. It doesn't feel like anything else has this hold on me.
Yeah.
Like, I try to stress that to people that it's not. It would be a very, very awful hobby if you didn't like it. Like, there's nothing sweet.
It's almost like you've found your true calling in life to be an aquarium keeper.
Yeah, but it doesn't make any money, and I'm okay with that too. Like, you can have a hobby that you just have a job to pay for.
Yeah.
Like, when I was a kid and I wanted to be a zoologist so bad because I thought that if you don't do your dream job, you're going to be miserable. But like, working a job you can do that it pays for a bunch of weird shit in your house, is fine. It's way better. Like, 'cause if I was keeping fish for a living, I reckon I'd go insane.
Yep, I can contest to that.
Because no one cares. No one wants to buy anything. Me included.
Taking away that, there's a lot of living animals in my presence at a lot of times.
Oh, yeah.
There's the old saying, two things you don't work with is animals and children.
Oh, well, of course not.
Yeah. Is there any resources or tools you consider essential for anyone to have proper, serious success with aquascaping?
Well, I don't think there's one answer to follow that you'll get the result you want. But I think there are hard rules in there that you should look at and really follow. Like, I don't know any off the top of my head, but I know if you Google it, there are certain things that if you read enough articles, you figure out that there are sort of like answers that keep appearing tend to be the ones that are things you should really stick to and follow, and then everything else you can just sort of faff around with.
Yeah.
But if you keep fish and you want to start aquascaping, you're about 18 steps into the game, right? Like, if you get someone off the street and they want to aquascape, right? This is what drives me insane, is you don't even, like, these people are like, I want to do this. You're like, but do you know how, like, basic water chemistry works? No. Well, then how are you going to grow a plant in it? You know, I'm not saying you have to be really smart or anything, but it's very hard to do 18 things at once if you can't do one of the things. You know, like keeping fish, and then you progress to like some plants. And you're like, oh, this is awesome. They keep dying. Why is that? And you Google, why do my plants in my established tank die? And it gives you answers. Whereas, like, how do I make an aquascape, you don't like it's going to give you a list of stuff, but you're not going to know what any of it means.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I hope that makes sense. Like,
That makes sense.
okay.
Yeah, I'm understanding what you're saying.
Well, it's a bit like saying I've never grown an apple tree, but I'd like to start an orchard, please.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, so what do you know about soil? Nothing. Okay, and what kind of apples are you going to grow? Oh, there's different types.
Red ones.
Red ones. Okay, well, there's 35 types of those.
Yeah. Big ones.
Big, crispy ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just one of those things. I think you need to stagger it out, but you can't force a stagger because someone will just quit. But you also jump in too deep, bite off too much, quit.
Has aquascaping had, or in particular the aquascaping community, had any positives on your personal life for like meeting people, experiencing different things? Positives probably not quite the right word to be thrown in there, but like, how has that kind of gone with you?
For me, I have, for the most part, met some. I've met a few physically. I've met a few online. Solid 10 out of 10 would have in my home people, and that makes up for the other stuff that kind of sucks. But like having the community that I have is not the community that is represented online either. Like I pick, certain people who I talk to, who I really appreciate showing things to or getting things from or showing each other the tanks and stuff. So I think that's a positive. That's a positive outcome of aquascaping in my life.
Mm-hmm.
But like I don't need more friends. I've just found more friends. I didn't go looking for a community. I've just allowed organically some people that I wouldn't normally know into my life.
Yeah. And we're all weirdos because we like glass boxes.
Well, that's exactly right. Like Ryan, you, I wouldn't talk to any of them if we didn't have something in common.
Yeah, totally makes sense. Cool. Well, that has brought us to the end of our structured questions. Yeah. Way fast. I very much enjoyed our time with you today.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a real fun time. So unless there's anything anyone in the chat wants to ask, or we don't want to shoot the shit for the next 40 minutes or so,
I figured you would have cut me off if I'd said anything too provocative.
Oh, I would have let you run for a little while. Depends on how many. What was that, sorry?
Burn all my bridges, eh?
Mm-hmm.
Let you run for a while and see where we end up.
I'm sure it'll be fine.
Oh, I'm sure it'll be absolutely fine. All right, so we like to end our Fanatics Friday coffee date with a quick score of 6, which is 6 quick fire questions and answers. If you are ready, tea or coffee? I know, I had to put it in there.
Coffee.
Heads or tails when doing a coin toss?
Heads.
Oh. Playing paper, scissors, rocks, what's your first move?
Rock.
If you could have a meal with someone at any point in time, alive, dead, fictional, at any point, who might that be?
I know Elton John.
Cool. Are we alone in the universe?
No.
Okay.
But what you think?
Not what I think. Okay.
Interesting.
What is your unicorn fish or plant that you would love to keep, grow, photograph, all that kind of stuff?
Unicorn fish. I'd like to keep a snake.
Cool. It's not a fish, but I'll accept it.
Well, you did say creature.
I didn't say creature.
Okay, well,
Oh,
rainbow trout.
Rainbow trout. Yep.
Cool. Well, sir, that is all that we have. I would really, really like to thank you very much for being with us. Really appreciate it. We had discussed you coming on for quite some time,
Yes.
and we weren't kind of able to make it work, and we've been able to make it work, which I'm absolutely fizzing about.
Yeah, well, thanks.
It's fantastic to talk to you.
Hmm.
I appreciate all of the time and effort you've put into helping me and the conversations that we've had over the years with keeping fish and keeping plants. It's been brilliant. So thank you very much for coming on with us.
No worries. Anytime.
Cool.
Well,
Are you free next week or have you next week?
Okay.
Sorry. There's Zen, one of our viewers, had just asked you if you.
Oh yeah, you'll do that.
On that before you go.
Well, I don't think it's aliens.
No.
So actually,
think?
my theory is it's a bit similar to the ancient aliens theory, but I think the ancient aliens theory is just a little bit iffy. There's a theory that like we're not actually from the planet. We're actually like a hybrid of aliens and something else, and they just come back in time every now and then to get us and take our genetic material. And one time I was in a car driving somewhere, and a guy who I was hitchhiking had told me all about that, and it made me really uncomfortable.
I'll bet.
The answer is I don't think so, really. We're not alone in the universe, but it doesn't matter either.
Yeah.
We'll find out one day.
Yeah.
Or we won't. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's it. Yeah.
Oh, thank you very much. We'll call it a day. And
am I leaving or are you leaving?
I think we're all going to leave.
Do I have to push anything, or can I just sit here?
No, you can just sit there. I'll say goodbye to everybody. Say thanks for joining us, and we'll see you again next week. And I'll push some buttons, and then the live stream will finish, and we can have a chat afterwards if you want, or we can have a chat now. I don't mind.
No, I'm going to go and have to make more coffee shortly. So
I understand that, and this is normally about this time I go. I'm really hanging out for more coffee as well.
Well, I'm off to bed.
Good night, John.
Good night.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us. It's been greatly appreciated. Thank you for being with us, Braxton, and thank you, everyone in the chat. And who has been watching. It has been a really fun time, and I've thoroughly enjoyed it.
Absolutely.
Until next time, have a good one. Happy fish keeping. Catch you later.
See you all later.